Hey everyone, it's time to look at the LEGO Ninjago Movie Flying Jelly Sub set. One of the stranger vehicles that they've come up with, I think, for this theme, and yet, strangely, it actually really works. The sub itself is kind of set up like a UFO with some marine life context added to it and perhaps a little bit of inspiration from some ocean exploration subs. It has a couple of flick fire missiles over here on this side that can be shot off, and those can be aimed as well. It's on a ball joint, so you get good range of motion there. On the other side, a couple more weapons. I don't know if those are supposed to represent cannons or if they're supposed to be missiles also that you can fire off, or they're like bombs or rockets, if they're dumb fire, if they're homing, but they can also be angled around, but they don't actually fire off. They don't have a physical firing action. So you just pull one out and then just fly it around yourself. Use that however you want. On the back are the propulsion units, as well as possibly fuel tanks. Maybe these are supposed to be. I'm not sure. Or maybe they're just air tanks and used for regulating buoyancy. But you can spin these around a little bit. You can change the angles of these just a little bit, not too much. It's nice that it has taillights on the back. You want to make sure that the thing is street legal, right? This does use trans medium blue 1x2 pieces, one right here and then one on either side. It's not a color that you see very frequently, and it's cool to get that. On the front are a couple of light sensing devices, so they're supposed to represent something I like, maybe taking a little bit of inspiration from box jellies. Those are actually attached with small old Western revolver pieces. Good use of parts there to get the little angle. And there's the ability to rotate the legs around, so you can hold on to just the capsule section up here and spin the legs about if you want. These legs each are articulated in two places, so you can bring that up and then you can bring this in and out. That's useful for kind of splaying it out like this, and it's got some trans orange pieces underneath, so you can kind of change the look of things a bit like that, make it closer to the ground, kind of a landing form like that. Pretty easy to set it up like that. Just put it on the ground and then push the legs down. Or you can also bring them together for when it's supposed to get all tied up and entangled in its own tentacles. Now these are interesting. They're just two pieces each. Just the trans orange chains and then a hook at the end, but the way they just hang like that, it's just something you don't very frequently see from LEGO. I think that it makes for a nice look and just brings a certain amount of liveliness to this thing that certainly would be missing without those. I kind of like that. They don't really do much. If you pretend that they are actual stinging tentacles, then of course you can just bring them over an innocent civilian or something, and just imagine they get stung, or you can trap something beneath it. So you have to use your imagination for that, but I like the inclusion of these. The only problem is that you do have to hold the whole thing up yourself in your hands to be able to use them, to get them to hang down. They don't give you any sort of stand to have a full pose of this, which would look pretty cool. The canopy is 8x8 and a full hemisphere, and this all hinges back to give you very generous, easy access. You might have to move these tanks off to the sides a little bit, but easy access into the cockpit. This is great. This is just so simple, and it's well presented. Just a small amount of detail, but more than usual. They've got a printed printed console piece in the front there. A couple of control sticks. I don't know what that button's supposed to be, something for firing off a weapon or something, or some sort of alert. And he also has a coffee mug, or maybe it's supposed to be a tea mug in this case or something. But whatever it is, it provides some refreshment for your guy, because he's ultimately human and can't just drink directly from the seawater. So it's good that he's got a nice fresh supply. But this is just set up nicely. And if you hold on to the legs instead of holding on to the top here, then you can spin all this around, rather than spinning the legs. Or you can kind of go between the two, have this doing like this, kind of lock this into place, spin this around. Just seems like it would have a lot of mobility, even if it might be kind of slow moving. Once it's into position, it would be probably difficult to ambush this thing. One thing I don't like is that these tanks back here, or whatever they're supposed to be, do fall off pretty easily. They're easy to just hit them and knock them off. If you want, you may consider just leaving them hanging down like this, and then consider them to be bombs when the thing is flying, or depth charges when it's in the water, because then you can just break one off relatively simply and just let it fall down and use that as an intentional attack. On the box art, they show the hammerhead on the left as the pilot for the jelly sub, but the set does include a jelly soldier, so if you want to set up some jellyception, you can put the jelly in the jelly, which I think would make sense to me. That wouldn't be an over-jellification of the situation. I mean, it's entirely up to you to decide. The hammerhead is one that does require the separate air tanks piece, which I think is great. I actually prefer that to the ones that have it all built together. It's nice to get the separate piece there with the gunmetal gray color. And there's a look at the back of that torso with nothing covering it up, as well as a look at the faces completely exposed. The set comes with Jay in his full ninja garb, and we also get a named citizen. That's Takuma on the right. Not sure what his exact purpose in the movie will be, why he actually got a name rather than just being a random citizen. But it's all good. Always good to get more regular people, although this is yet another citizen that gets no normal face. So he only gets the scared expression for when he's under attack. It definitely would have been a lot more useful to get either dual faces for the citizens throughout this entire line, or just normal faces for all of them, rather than having some that just have the really extreme, frightened expression and nothing else. Takuma also gets this nice boat though. This was a good build, little river sedan, you might call it. Has a little bit of cargo on the front with some buckets, although it doesn't come with anything to put into those buckets, so that's a place where you need to use your own imagination. You can't put anything into the rear section, but it's nicely detailed up. I like how they have the angled planks along the sides, and kind of miniaturized the lantern at the front. I think the whole thing is just really miniaturized, but it looks pretty good, and it was enjoyable to put together. It uses a lot of offset construction with a lot of jumper pieces and very few large pieces. The largest pieces at all are just these two used at the absolute front and back on the underside, and everything else is built up with a fair number of different parts. All told, I like this thing. I think my favorite parts are the small boat and the cockpit arrangement for the jelly sub itself. The things that I like least are, well, first of all, the fact that there's no stand to allow you to actually appreciate just the hanging tentacles on this thing. The fact that these tanks fall off kind of easily, although like I showed, kind of turning those downward helps with that a lot and makes it make more sense. And also just the hammerhead is my least favorite of the figures included here, but you do get 3 others, so it's not such a terrible thing. You do see here that they suggest also turning the fans towards the front. They made a lot more sense to me facing towards the rear just to represent propulsion, but it might look a little bit better this way. It's not very easy to get that pose out of it. That pose is something that I really like, although you have to be holding it up at the time. But it's something different. The small side build is worthy as well. It's pretty fun. So I'm happy to have been able to build this and to share with you what it looks like and all. Thanks for stopping by and watching the video. Hope that you enjoyed this, and I'll be talking to you again soon.